Welcome to Open Tables. With your hosts, Cynthia Sue Larson.
That it's okay for everybody to change. It's okay to let things go. And that's really powerful.
Christopher Anatra.
The universe is based on commerce. You know me as the quantum businessman.
Jerry Hicks.
I feel like I've woken up in a parallel dimension where everybody's exactly the same. They look the same memories generally speaking, but they're different.
And Shane Robinson.
Nobody has all the answers, so everybody's welcome to share their ideas, and it really expands our consciousness when we do that.
Open Tables. Unique perspectives for a new view of reality.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the IMEC Open Tables Season 3, Episode 1. Welcome to 2023. Woohoo! Look at that. Look at the cute rabbit. The year of the rabbit it is, by the way. Can you believe it's 2023, Season 3? We've been doing this for 3 years. Absolutely amazing. So glad to have all of you guys here in chat and all of you guys watching on the replay. It is an absolute honor to have you guys here. Let us go ahead and run through the quick legalities here so we can get the boring stuff out of the way and have a lot of fun. The content you are about to watch is meant for thought and consideration. Please be respectful of each other and opinions shared. This is a safe space to express thoughts, ideas, and information. Please note that no copyright infringement is intended with regard to inclusion of short excerpts of material that are included in accordance with fair use under Section 107 of the Copyright Act. All right, I am trying to get as quick as the Micro Machines guy from back in the day. You guys remember him? I'll probably never achieve that, but I'm trying, right? You got to have a goal. And our goal today is to present some incredible information to you guys. So in order to do that, I can't do it alone. I got to bring on my team, starting with our Vice President of IMEC, Miss Cynthia Sue Larson. Glad to see you, Cynthia. Next up, we have our Secretary, Mr. Shane Robinson, unbiased and on the fence. And last but definitely not least, our treasurer, Mr. Christopher Anatra. You know him as the quantum businessman.
Hey, everybody.
Great to have all of you guys here today. So we've got a lot of cool sponsors to get to in today's show. So the agenda today, we're going to do the sponsors. We've got some really amazing stuff for you guys. Then we'll do the updates from myself, Chris, Shane, and Cynthia. Then we'll have a 9/11 timeline change. Ooh. For all those of us who have studied 9/11 or were, around at 9/11, because unfortunately there are those now that weren't, you're going to be quite amazed if you've seen this in real time, especially. There's an actor's name that may have had a change to it. Ooh, Mandela's playing again. A unicorn Siberian rhino that coexisted with humans. Are you kidding me? A unicorn? Wow. Anything's possible. I said from the beginning we was going to end up seeing them eventually again. We keep seeing these animals coming back, these Lazaruses. Speaking of animals, a pig heart transplant. What could be so special about that? Oh, you'll see. And then we have a Q&A coming up at the end, folks, so make sure you have your questions ready. Throw them in. We will be watching the chat. Definitely get them ready, and we will cover those at the end of the show. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get this party started. Our first sponsor up today is the golden dwarf boa snake. So I'm no fan of snakes. I've made no two ways about that ever. I don't know many people. I do know a couple. I'm not going to lie. I do know a couple who are fans of snakes. Now that I think about that. But anyway, I'm rambling. The dwarf boa snake, we got our gold color here. And I'm going to throw this to the team because I think I've talked enough here in the opening. So there's one one line I want to say first, though, before I do get there, and that is one quoted out here. It says, when this thing was found, said they were immediately surprised because it shouldn't be there. I think we can all relate in Mandela Effect to that feeling. Team, go ahead. What do you guys think of this?
Well, first of all, I love the color of it. It's got that gold kind of a hue. So it's, to me, it reminds me of the golden timeline. And like you said, Jerry, when someone that's a biologist, a specialist in the area, recognizes this snake is in a place that we don't expect to find it, it's like it showed up out of nowhere. And totally, it reminds me of when I've seen people show up out of nowhere that didn't exist before, and now they're here. And I think that's a big part of the Mandela effect. It's not just dead people being alive again. Sometimes it could be a whole species showing up that was never there before. Not just a Lazarus species, but an occurrence where we just never saw them before. And
it even goes into the idea of a history change. Perhaps in this history, they had been there, whether known or not, and now in this timeline, they hadn't been there, but now they're here.
That's the Mandela Effect significance of this observation. But it's got those layers, which I love, where you can see like, okay, it's golden and it's a dwarf. So it's a little teeny tiny thing. So I've never heard, first of all, this isn't the first dwarf boa that I've heard of, but I'm not a snake expert. So
you know what? That's really interesting, Cynthia, because in one of the other sponsors we're going to get to, it's a type of whale, but it's classified as a pygmy whale. And there are other, when I was doing research, there are other types of these small, like dwarf whales. So all of a sudden, there's more of these dwarf, smaller species coming onto the timeline.
Yeah,
So with that.
And these boa constrictors, like last month, we talked about the constrictors are known as being some of the largest snakes around. And then, Chris, you're mentioning whales. Of course, we know those are some of the largest aquatic species in the world. They're whales. So we've got these pygmies and dwarfs of these giant species. That's something new to me. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, Jerry, man. I don't like hanging out with snakes and stuff like that. But, you know, if I had a dream or if a golden snake came across my path like it is here, I think of the snake or the serpent as knowledge. So like golden knowledge, maybe a little nugget of knowledge, you know, it's because it's a dwarf. I don't know. But I definitely attach it with knowledge when it comes to the serpent.
What a time for it to show up then. At the age of knowledge, the age of Aquarius, the age of knowing.
Mm-hmm.
What a time for such an animal to pop into the timeline.
And it's less scary, Jerry, because it's small, it's tiny. It's not like the big boas that can wrap around you. I remember my grandfather used to tell me if a boa ever wrapped around you to find like a tree branch and like break it, make snapping noises, because that would make the boa think it broke your bones, then it would release you. So I'd always be scared of like the big boas, the anacondas and that kind of stuff.
That's kind of brilliant, actually. I'd have never thought about that.
Yeah. So next time you're in Ecuador and something, some branches to snap.
Because, you know, I go down there every couple months, you know. Yeah, no. But very fascinating, this golden boa dwarf snake, this suddenly appeared on the timeline that even the scientists said, this shouldn't be here.
Yeah, new species.
And it's gold. We got the golden timeline once again. We have this theme that just keeps showing up over and over and over. Absolutely fascinating.
B. Johnny in the chat says, this is what it looks like when the ME Avengers show up. That's good.
Love it.
Thanks for the comment.
Speaking of the chat, I would like to shout out the chat real quick. Shane, as we got some international viewers here. It says, greetings from Turkey, Yasmin Beratan. Greetings, Turkey. We're glad to have you guys hanging out with us. The International Mandela Effect team. And there was another one in here from Belgium. I apologize. I don't see. There you go. Lisbeth Swen. Hi from Belgium. Happy 2023. So checking in all across the world to the International Mandela Effect, ladies and gentlemen. We're glad to have you guys with us.
From Spain.
Oh, we got Spain here. Hello from Spain, says Sally. Well, thank you, Sally. Glad to have you here. So glad that I'll catch this live stream. I look so forward to these discussions. Scrambling off for a quick shower so I can sit, watch, and learn. Thank you all for your time. Well, I hope you enjoyed your shower, and I hope you're enjoying the show. And speaking of the show, we have yet another sponsor for our show coming up, the Leucistic white wolf in Israel. So leucistic animals, this, to be fair, ladies and gentlemen, is not an albino as one would think, because of course we see the white animals. We were always taught albino. Leucism is new to me. This is something we've run across in the research we've done here in the team. This is a partial loss of pigmentation, so its fur's white, but the eye color isn't red, correct? It's a different color. These albinos are red or pink. Is that correct?
That's right.
Right.
Okay, I get that confused sometimes. So the eye color is standard eye color. The only thing different is the coat of the animal, which I've always said, white stands out. It is not a good nature decision to have a pure white animal, considering the hunting and predator prey value of the whole situation. So this is quite an odd thing we're seeing more and more often here in the Mandela Effect, is these leucistic animals. And of course it's a wolf, so you know I got something to say about it. What do you guys think, team?
You know, this is a beautiful example of a protector animal. We often talk about the white animals or tree. We had a white redwood too, being protectors, and I get that strong feeling, from this wolf. Wolves, of course, represent community and protection, and there's a kind of wisdom that comes with wolf. So it seems like an extremely auspicious sign, and I'm glad to see it showing up in the Middle East, where often there might be, tension or conflict. But it seems like it's showing up to bring, hopefully, cooperation at a time when I think people are kind of nervous about worldwide, tension internationally. So it looks like it's bringing a reminder to all of us that we can collaborate regardless what things look like. So I'm glad to see it show up on our timeline.
Yeah, when I was tuning into it, I was trying to figure out, like, is this wolf a super protector of I usually start with people, places, or things, and I was definitely getting people. So I feel like that wolf is along the lines with Cynthia was saying, that wolf is like a protector of the people in that area. So I definitely feel that.
I love the signs of hope, as you're mentioning. These white animals, we keep seeing the leucistic or albino either way, but the white animals are such a sign of hope for the future, and to know that even though there is tensions and craziness going on around us, it's okay. There is protection here. Shane, do you want to add anything to this?
I want to bring in Anne from the chat, who says, it turns out all your coloring is generated from the eye during development. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
That is interesting. Indeed.
But yeah, this is I used to have a dog that looked a lot like this, and we named it Casper.
I like it. But that is something that we have noticed, though, with the Mandela Effect, is the leucism. It seems to almost be a side effect of something going on, whether it be the different sun we have or whatever the case may be, right?
Well, to me, it ties in with the white buffalo prophecy, which was an expectation by the indigenous First Nations peoples of the North American continent that there would be a time of of course, the return of the buffalo, but more significantly, perhaps, the return of white buffalo specifically, and that this would be the beginning of the time of uniting people of the world from all the corners of the world and all of the different races, types of humans. So it's really the coming together. And I really feel that with this particular white wolf, that it's leucism. And this leucism, I don't remember leucism from decades and decades ago. It was not such a big thing. It wasn't on my radar that it was happening. And now we're getting this at the time of so much transformation on the planet. So it's a good sign, I think.
If it did exist, it existed in such a small quantity that it wasn't a thing that was known across a lot of species. You know, it would be one of those rare genetic differentials if it did exist at all back then, in my opinion.
Right.
All right, and that is the Leucistic white wolf in Israel. Sponsor number 2. Moving on to sponsor number 3 is the black wolves. So we go from the white wolf to the dark wolf. There we go. You know, this is right up my alley, the dark wolf for sure. But so the question I'm going to pose before we go over the technical information we have on screen here, I do remember there being some dark wolves like this, but I don't remember it being like a really common thing. You'd run across them every now and then, but it wasn't the norm per se to see a bunch of them. But that seems to have changed. Is that right, guys?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And I remember, like you do, Jerry, that it would be something you'd see once in a while, but I didn't know of examples of them being so common. Certainly not in North America. I would think if someone asked me, where do you think the black wolves might come from? I'd say Europe. I'd be guessing, but no, they're really increasingly common here, and it seems like they're spreading to the south. So this is very interesting, this development.
What is really interesting about this is the way it's saying that the fur has gained this coloring, if you will. So according to the slide here, on North American continent, on the North American continent, Jerry put all the words in a sentence. It works better that way. Specifically, the further south you go, the more wolves there are with dark black hued coats. Living in the South, I can tell you, no, that was not a common fact. There were wolves down here, but not wolves with majority dark black-hued coats. No, ma'am, no, sir, no, thank you. Coat color is determined by a gene called CPD103, which historically made their coats gray. However, a mutation in CPD103 has emerged and is in dogs and crossed over to wolves, producing a black coat. The canine distemper virus. The distemper virus may play a role in the numbers of black-coated wolves across North America, since the DNA region in the CPD103 resides in, I should say, is also involved in encoding a protein that protects against lung infections like canine distemper. So they think that it could have been a gene mutation because of a virus to antigen the virus, to antibody the virus, right?
Yeah, but this could be chicken and the egg. I think anytime we look for some material, mechanistic, analytical rationalization for how these things change, it's the chicken and the egg. Like, what really prompted the change? For our perspective, with the Mandela effect, I think, at least from my perspective, I would like to look for a consciousness root cause first and foremost, and then you can, to me, that's the chicken and the egg. That first there is, just like the sign of the white animals, the white buffalo returning, the white wolves, and then similarly with the return of the white wolf, then we also expect the black wolves, and maybe there will be red wolves and golden wolves. This is part of the myth of the white buffalo, and I think we are seeing this in other animals as well. So the rationalization is interesting, and it gives us something to hang our, analytical hooks into and think like, okay, we have an explanation, but do we really? Like, why is this happening to so many species, not just wolves?
Yeah, and if I could add to that too. So in my Symphony of Reality series, I had this thing called the Fringe Intermission, and I talked about something called the dark giraffe, which for me was a Mandela effect, because I never remember giraffes having like black coloring, and then reading into what that would mean with the Akashic records. But basically, a lot of these black or dark animals, especially ones that are new in our reality, seem to be very powerful in, I'll call it magic, however you want to think of magic, whether it's manipulating energy or whatever. I called them badass with a good heart. So, they're to be shown respect. So, yeah, I think that these animals, like all of these black wolves appearing on the timeline, is actually overall it's a good thing, because the bottom line is they have a good heart. So I just wanted to throw that into the mix of everything else we're talking about.
And it feels like balance, like we've got the yin and the yang, the white and the dark. We need both, and they're coming together.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking the same things happen with like the polarization of the population too. Things have gotten more, the contrast has increased, and that's what we're seeing between the white and the black wolf as well. But you're right, they're both to be respected. Sage in the chat says, I saw one black wolf in December of 2021 run across my backyard. It wasn't that old. In December 2022, saw a black wolf run across my backyard, and this time it was around 150 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Is that Mississippi? USA?
I want to say yes. I'm going to go with yes.
Okay. I was starting to think Minnesota, but I think it's Mississippi.
I was getting confused with Missouri, but I think yes.
That's MO for Missouri, yeah.
Okay, that is Mississippi.
Okay. Never have seen a wolf period in Mississippi. So this was strange.
And that makes sense too, because it says that they're more in the southern United States. So that goes with what's going on. Yeah.
Nova says
verified it is Mississippi. Between the two of us, we got it right, Shane. All right.
Nova says there are already red wolves. Very nice.
Oh my gosh, they're coming in. This is what would be predicted and expected from looking at the buffalo. Yeah, we're looking at, because I'm just saying, it reminds me of the white buffalo prophecy, which said to expect this, and the coloration of the animals. And the wolves are such strong protectors. I would expect them to be doing much like what the buffalo are doing. And thank you for this validation and confirmation.
Red wolves?
Never heard of red wolves before. This is new to me.
We're going to have to include that next month, because I can't wait to see it myself.
Wow. Yeah, we just came across next month's first sponsor right there. Because
we did have a mailbag.
Had I known about it.
Very cool. Very cool.
Red wolves. Thank you. Who said that? Nova Cynthia Barker. Thank you for that tidbit information. I will look into the red wolves for sure.
Now all we need is the rainbow wolf, and we'll be doing really good.
And Chris has officially called it into the timeline, ladies and gentlemen.
Rainbow squirrels, rainbow.
Not all the rainbows we've seen.
Rainbow squirrels. I'm going to put my intention in with that one.
Rainbow squirrels exist.
Oh, they're already there?
Yeah, they're already there.
I thought we covered that.
Yeah, they came out actually in the Rainbow Run back in what, 17 or 18?
Yeah.
With the mountains and the rivers and the squirrels and the Rainbow Run.
There's a Rainbow Island that Cynthia identified.
Rainbow Island?
Yes.
Yeah.
Rainbow deserts, rainbow everything. The rainbows are taking over.
I think we have some more wolves though, don't we, Jerry?
Yeah.
We have more wolves. We got to have a pack. You can't just have one or two wolves. You got to have a pack of wolves, right? What do we got next? Heather, our producer in the background, doing such a wonderful job keeping things rolling, keeping up with our craziness here on the front stage. Sponsor number 4, largest wolf litter in California century. This is incredible news, folks. Absolutely incredible so they were almost wiped out in California. Is this correct, Cynthia? You're a Californian expert here. Tell us about this.
Yes, it's been big news anytime they just see a single wolf in California. And I remember that there was like a rambling wolf wandering through California, being spotted in the woods and along the Sierra Nevada. So people would mention that, and it just seemed kind of sad. Like, well, we've got one wolf, but now we don't just have one wolf. Somehow these wolves have found each other. They have a family, and they're having litters. And this litter of 8 pups is an extremely good sign. It's a good sign for the health of the ecosystems and the environment, because when wolves are present in the environment, the entire ecosystem thrives. I think many people may have seen that video that shows that proof and evidence that wolves, just like humans used to be guardians and keepers of the environment and the ecosystem, wolves are very much doing that. They're able to make sure that there aren't too many of the species that destroy and decimate, grasses and so forth, and create floods. So, there's just so much more balance when you've got wolves. And so this is just phenomenally good news from many different levels, from the physical level all the way to the spiritual level that we were just talking about with the white and the dark and the protector quality of these wolves. So it's very, very good news.
It's just incredible to see a big litter again. 8 pups. I know it doesn't sound like a lot compared to some dogs having 10 and 12, but for them, like, this is huge. This is one of the biggest recorded in a century. So this is definitely, like you said, a growth of the ecosystem, the health of the ecosystem. And it's good to see the Mandela, if you will, kind of balancing things out a little bit.
And to riff on what one of our viewers was saying today, I saw a wolf just running. I was on a walk near the woods near my house, and we don't have wolves here. I live in the Bay Area near San Francisco. And I was alone on a street and silently running on the asphalt at about 35 or 40 miles an hour. Is coming head on toward me is a wolf, and it was making no sound whatsoever, and just loping. It looked like it could do that for hours. It was just sort of galloping along at this really high speed with no effort. It just looked like it was cruising, and it was awesome. I've never seen such an amazing sight, and it didn't make any sense because at that point, this was years ago, like I said, we didn't have wolves. Maybe it was someone's pet that got loose. But I don't know. It didn't have a collar, and there was nobody with it. It was just sort of a weird, amazing experience. Like the woman who said that there was a young dark wolf in the backyard, and then the next year, 150-pound dark wolf. And
right.
When you see these things, it just gives you that sense of awe and amazement. Like you're in the presence of something magical and mysterious and wonderful.
To be fair, not this dark wolf. Just so we're clear. But yeah, I agree. It is. I keep hearing stories about people who are encountering these things. I would love to see a wolf in the wild, far enough away from me that it don't see me.
Yeah.
I'm not ignorant to the fact that to the wolf, I'm dinner. So, love the animals. They're amazing creatures. I know my limits. So, Speaking of wolves, are we done with the wolves? Let's find out. Sponsor number 5 is a rainbow fish, ladies and gentlemen. I told you there was a rainbow wave.
Beautiful.
Rose-veiled fairy rose. Use your words, Jerry. Veiled fairy wrasse fish. Discovered in 2022. This stunning, new to science, and me and you and our audience and everyone else, is first ever fish described by a Maldivian scientist
from the Maldive Islands. Yep.
That's those islands that appeared on my map out of nowhere that weren't there before. Just saying. And it's also where the fox, the 6-foot winged fox.
Oh, flying foxes?
The bat.
Fox bat or something like that.
Flying fox.
Yeah, it's a bat. That's where it also appeared. So, yeah, I don't know if you guys remember, it was like right off the west coast. It was like that string of islands that had no words on it. So it's like they popped out of nowhere. And now we're seeing more and more Mandela Effect animals, manned animals coming from that region. That's just so weird,
That is weird and amazing.
When you have a number of them coming out of the same area that has a Mandela twist to it already, that is very, very interesting. Named after the country's national flower, the species is added to the Tree of Life as part of the California Academy of Sciences Global Hope for Reefs initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the rainbow fish. I mean, we've heard of rainbow trout, so the idea isn't totally crazy, but they weren't like this. I've never seen a literal like triple multicolored fish like that.
Yeah, they call it rose veiled, but to me, you're right. It looks more like a rainbow because it's even got the greens and the blues and the violet.
It almost looks like a black lights on the tail of it. It's like so glowy looking. I love it.
Yeah, it almost goes into ultraviolet or something.
Mm-hmm. And I love fairies, so fairy rays, that's awesome.
Me too. I love this.
And Gainer says, new islands, new animals. Makes sense.
Makes
By
you
the way-
wonder what else might show up there.
Shane, by the way, if you love
Right.
fairies, just to add to that, Shane, if you like fairies,
Yeah.
I found out that fairies like little blueberry muffins. So when I was at Mount Shasta, there was this place called Fairy Falls that I went to, and I brought these little mini blueberry muffins and I left them out for the fairies, and I got the message that they enjoyed them. So
Wow, very nice.
yeah, blueberry muffins. Who would have thought it?
That'd be awesome.
Well, I mean, blueberry, it is a natural one. I can see that being a favorite. So, ladies and gentlemen, the rose-veiled fairy wrasse fish. We are continuing this colorful journey across the Mandela Effect with sponsor number 6 being extinct grass. Now we're getting into some Lazarus territory. The Lazarus species are even more fascinating to me than the Leucistic ones because you have things that are coming back after so many of numbers of years, just suddenly reappearing in the timeline. This is the amount of things that we have been able to cover, and I've been tracking this since about 2017. It's in the upper hundreds of the things that I've seen come back just over the last couple years. I don't think the population of the Earth is a problem for the humans. I think the animals might start running into depopulation or overpopulation issues, as there's so many of them coming back. We've only got so much Earth to cover all of them.
Well, we got more of it popping up here, though. All this new grass.
Maybe Earth will grow. You know, I'm gonna take an aside here before we discuss this grass. The Earth I remember, and I'm pretty sure most of you guys remember, was differently shaped. The continents were different. But I found if you take and you blow the Earth up and give it enough time and expand it, well, everything fits in place as we remember it. It's almost like we're on a proto-Earth, a pre-Earth to what we all remember, which is really fascinating because as it grows, as time goes and the Earth grows in size and it gets to the point that we remember it being to begin with, it would have enough space for all these different things that apparently are coming back into the timeline that were probably there way back when we were, home, that we didn't know about at the time. For those that know what I'm talking about, jumping timelines. But back to the grass here. Tell us about this grass, team.
Well, I think it's interesting that this was discovered at this beautiful location. The picture shows a waterfall, and the team made this accidental discovery of this long lost species at the edge of this huge, tall waterfall. So I know skeptics would say, well, they just didn't know about it because nobody went back there. But these are biologists that, again, I think that they are paying attention and noticing and looking for something. They don't want species to go extinct. So it seems amazing and it seems like a symbolic message that this is a previously extinct grass that's now not extinct, showing up after 70 years. And so the numbers seem significant. 7, of course, being a very spiritual number. And then the location, behind this huge, tall waterfall. It's 280 meters tall. That's tall. I don't know how many stories that is, but maybe what? So if we run the math on it, maybe it's tall. It's very, very tall. It's taller than a lot of buildings. So it's going to be a very significant sort of a message.
918 feet.
That's tall. That's
tall.
Yeah, it's almost 1,000 feet tall.
That's a pretty big building, or in this case, waterfall.
Right. And so the grass is so, it seems humble. It's like one of the most humble types of plants. When we think about grass, we don't tend to think it's something fancy. It's not like a tree. It's not like a flower. But in that simplicity and that humility, there's an elegance. So this particular kind of grass seems very meaningful. And I don't know how to pronounce it, Ctenium Sequiflorum. Take a stab at it.
Better than I would have.
So I think it's just very symbolically showing us that even very humble things can show up in the most splendid locations, and there's power, significance, and meaning to each and every one of us. So it seems like a very powerful message of keeping the faith, keeping hope. To me, rainbows go with waterfalls. We often see them together, and so it seems like a huge message of hope, and just an indicator that things are going to be fine. And I think a lot of us need to hear that message right now. So it seems like there's a strong communication through this return of this plant. Very humble plant.
And a grass. It just goes to show that it could be a creature, it could be a plant, and it doesn't matter. We've got all these different things coming back, Lazarus style. It's amazing to me.
Yes.
50 years.
Yes.
That it was gone, and all of a sudden it's back. And we've seen such ranges too. All these different things we've covered in the last couple of years on this show. We've seen such ranges from just a couple of years all the way up to decades upon decades that these things have been gone, but they're all coming back around the same time. Which again, doesn't this also lend to the Hopi prophecy, Cynthia?
Yes, there was an expectation of a return of extinct species. This was prophesied. So this is exactly what to look for when you come into the age of the next world, that we're moving from the fourth world into the fifth. So it's been expected, been prophesied, and we're getting to see some of this for ourselves. So it's an extraordinary, amazing time to be alive.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I was going to say, so when we see these things that were thought to be extinct and then they're back again, what's going on? Are we in another timeline, a higher frequency timeline, where these things that were gone are now making their reappearance? And then that has to ask the question, like, what is Earth? Like, what is this experience that we're having? So these types of whether it's Lazarus animals or Lazarus species of a botanical nature, it really doesn't matter. It just shows that we keep raising our frequency. So we're coming into an Earth where all of these things are coming back again. So again, like everyone's saying, it's grass, right? But it's a very positive sign because it hasn't been seen in a long time. So I'm happy the grass is back.
I'm happy to.
Absolutely. Being happy about grass used to have a whole different meaning when I was a kid. Next slide, please.
Moving right along.
The Galapagos Cactus finch birds, another Lazarus creature back from extinction, ladies and gentlemen. Again, quite a few of these we have seen over the years. I'm just mind-boggled by the amount they keep coming back. They have been frequent sightings of the cactus finches on Pinzon Island, a species considered extinct from the region for more than 4 decades. Not 4 years, 4 decades, 40 years. Also, in recent years, the giant tortoise, thought to be extinct for more than 150 years, has returned to nest on Pinzon Island. The same island, folks. The same islands. Once again, we're finding these Mandanimal creatures. The Galapagos not necessarily being a Mandela effect itself, although I'd be willing to bet if you looked into the research, you could probably find some if you were a fan of Darwin. I was not. Cordova, director of the Galapagos Islands Park, said about the turtle coming back. But so the Galapagos, we have a number of times we have referenced the Galapagos in this show with Mandanimals. Is something going on in the Galapagos, guys? Something incredible, magical going on over there?
Yeah, well, we're talking about the Maldives, and now we've got the Galapagos. It seems similar that we've got these things showing up in both places, and they're both islands. So it seems symbolic that we're seeing a return of extinct species showing up in these locations. And I think it's interesting that giant tortoise had been missing for 150 years. And now here we've got a smaller animal, this cactus finch. It's a little bird. I can't tell how big, but can't be that huge. It looks like it's next to a tiny flower. So, but still, it's the kind of bird that the biologists would have been looking for. And you're right, Jerry, it's gone for more than 4 years. 4 decades is quite a while. So it's significant that it's come back.
I think
Good
it's
sign.
interesting. I think it's interesting that we're seeing a sort of an expansion of not only just the contrast between the lights and the darks, but it's even happening, with the size. We're seeing really small animals and really big animals, and even giants. I've been coming across all sorts of stuff about giants in our history coming up, and bones and stuff discovered.
Yeah.
So a lot of amazing things like that. So it's really strange how much, when you look at one of these maps that show like all the different size humans or beings, our typical 5-foot size is actually like at the bottom of the list. There was all these other huge, like, but they'll have like a femur that is like bigger than the guy and stuff. I don't know if you've seen any of these pictures or whatever, but it's like this whole history about the size differences. So this finch looks really tiny. I can't really tell.
Yeah,
it's like a really tiny bird.
I'll add to that too about the global narrative. Like when I was reading about this finch, they were saying that recently on that island and other islands in the Galapagos, they've been doing this program to catch and kill as many rats as possible. And so in recent years, they thought that's because the rats would eat the eggs and that type of a thing. So they were saying that's probably the reason for this bird to reappear. But if they just recently started doing it and it's been extinct for 40 years, like that doesn't make any sense either. So yeah, to me, it's like, again, another sign that we're in a higher frequency bandwidth timeline on the planet. Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is the Galapagos cactus finch, back from extinction after 40 years. Definitely not the oldest one, once again, but another Lazarus species to add to our extendedly long list. And speaking of our list, we are not done with sponsors. We've got yet another one on the list, I'm pretty sure, right?
Oh, yes.
Oh, we do. Yet again, the Galapagos. We stay right where we're at in the Galapagos Islands with the Galapagos Gecko that are back after 5,000 years.
Woo! Oh my gosh. This is amazing.
Are you kidding me? 5,000. Yeah, that definitely. Round of applause for Mandela on that one. 5,700 years, apparently.
Now these are small.
These things were thought to be good.
But you guys are right. It doesn't seem like size matters because that giant tortoise came back in the Galapagos, and that was huge. Now these little guys are showing up too. So this is fascinating.
But you bring another point. We got dwarf creatures here too. We're seeing a lot of dwarf creatures come out today.
What's amazing about this one is that they only knew it from fossil records. So that they've been looking for these things. The Galapagos, is such a well-studied area. And these little geckos, how could they have been hiding for that long? 5,000, it's almost 6,000 years because they were going back to fossil records from 5,700 years ago.
Well, your point having very high validity, they only had fossil records. They were only finding fossils. They didn't find any, like even accidentally stumbling upon and tripping over one. They didn't find zip, zero, nada that all of a sudden, that is more than fascinating.
And this is exactly what's in that prophecy. This is that Hopi prophecy that animals from fossil records would return. Last month, I think we had the off the coast of California, those clams, right? Only known by fossil records. They're back. And now we've got geckos back that were only known from fossil records.
All right, chat. Listen to me, chat. Chat, listen to me, guys. How many of you think the dinosaurs will be back soon? Which dinosaur do you think is coming back by the Mandela? My money is on the pterodactyl, honestly. I'd like to see the stegosaurus, but the pterodactyl is the one I think is coming back. I want to know, chat, what do you guys think? We've seen 5,700 years old. Clearly, dinosaurs are in line to eventually come back out of the fossil record. So what do you guys think? Anyway, moving on. Team, Galapagos geckos. So small carnivorous. I need to use the words again, don't I? The tongue is totally crisscrossing today, and I got a show tonight. This ain't good. The small carnivorous lizard, which belonged to the gecko genus Philodactylus.
Yeah. I think
Okay,
that's right.
I literally was just talking about pterodactyls. There we go. Were previously only known as rabida. Okay, I just slaughtered that word. From subfossil records dating back approximately 5,700 years. Researchers are in the process of conducting genetic analysis to determine if these geckos represent a new species. Okay, what do you think, team? New species or new species on timeline?
Well, that's going to be interesting because if they only found it in the fossil record, how are they even going to do a DNA analysis? It would seem like it would have to show as a new species, and that would further confirm what this is. And Jerry, to answer your question, megalodon, I think that there seems to be evidence that the megalodon may have returned, and I wouldn't doubt it if there are islands like Jurassic Park where they actually have been already doing experiments with dinosaurs and that type of a thing. So I just want to
And
throw
with
that
the
out there.
open ocean, I mean, that's not totally unheard of to be able to be done. If it grows to the size of its container, the ocean's a huge container.
Now, Chris, are you talking about scientists bringing things back with DNA experiments and that kind of thing? Or are you talking about like what we're discussing here, the Mandela effect return naturally of an extinct species?
Yeah, I think that scientists like doing experiments, and I believe that there are actual islands that have even been able to phase in and out of time that may have had dinosaurs on them. I think like everything's on the table when it comes to that. So someday there might be a slide about the megalodon has returned, or the brontosaurus, or the pterodactyl, or whatever. So
I'm
yeah.
waiting.
Yeah.
And Jerry, I think Jerry, I know you covered a lot of these things in some of your radio shows or YouTube shows. You've talked about the Thunderbird, right? And the fact that that's come back. Do you want to? It seems relevant. I don't know what the chat is saying about things, but your pterodactyl.
So the Thunderbird would be the equivalent of the pterodactyl. Basically, this is this huge bird with large wings so large, in fact, it's named a Thunderbird because when it flapped its wings, it would create such a loud noise like thunder. As it moved across the sky. Of course, these were thought to be myth, even though there has been modern day sightings. There was even a picture that it wasn't Photoshop. Photoshop didn't exist back then. If it was faked, it was a really, really good fake for its time that shows somebody standing, or a group of guys standing next to one of these Thunderbirds that's hanging. Way above them is the feet, and it's all the way down to the ground where they stand. Like you can tell a differential in size for sure. So the Thunderbird, once upon the timeline, could be coming back into the timeline. It could be what we would call the modern day pterodactyl. Perhaps we are going to see this as a Lazarus species one day. We'll have on the channel here where they'll call it a different an osprey or some bird that crazy name or something. We'll know it's the Thunderbird. Perhaps that would be the case one day. I mean, we're seeing things come in and out of the timeline that are just mind-boggling. And fossil record, they had nothing but a fossil record on that lizard, and they 5,000 years later find one. I mean, it doesn't take the idea that it's a lizard. We were told dinosaurs were lizards. It's not out of the ballpark at this point to think we're going to see a T-Rex or a Stegosaurus chomping around pretty soon.
Yeah, when I hear Thunderbird, I think of like the Thunderbird that's at the top of the Native American totem
That's
pole.
exactly exactly the one. Yes.
Yeah, because like one time in my house, I saw a vision of one. I'm like, what the heck is that? I thought it was like, do you ever see the Muppet Show and Sam the Eagle?
Yep.
Like that character.
Yep.
I'm like, Sam the Eagle's in my house. And then I was able to figure out, no, that was a Thunderbird. So yeah, there's something going on with Thunderbirds for sure. Yeah.
Definitely fascinating creatures, and a lot of the southwestern native tribes spoke of this. This wasn't just one tribe that had this mythology. These were seen across a vast area, and I tend to take the Native American words a little more seriously than anyone else, because they didn't have a reason to lie. They were warning each other, hey, that big thing's over there, watch out. or that's a cursed area. You might not want to go over there. It's bad stuff going on, bad mojo, you know. And we come to find out these are areas that have paranormal instances and circumstances, or a reference being the Thunderbirds in this case, every single time. I really believe the Native Americans knew a whole lot more. I say Native Americans, I'm trying to find a nice way to put this with YouTube. The first peoples of all the nations knew a lot more probably than we even know today. I'll put it like that.
Yes.
All right, and is that our last sponsor? I can't.
No, we've got two more. Two more.
We have a load of them. All right, Jamaican iguana. There's so many. I couldn't remember. Jamaican iguana thought to be extinct 1948 to 1990.
Yeah.
Wait, so it's back as of 1990? Let's find out. Jamaican iguana, also known commonly as Colley's iguana, whoever Colley is a large species of lizard in the family Iguanidae. The species is endemic to Jamaica. Endemic. It makes it sound like it's a freaking like medical problem. It's endemic to Jamaica. It is critically endangered, even considered extinct between 1948 and 1990. So during that set of shifts, it was not here, I guess. Once found throughout Jamaica and on the offshore islets, Great Goat Island and Little Goat Island. So we've got iguanas on goats. There you go. Is now confined to the forest of Hellshire Hills. It doesn't get any better.
Well, this one was sent in by a viewer, and the observation being this is a golden animal returning to the timeline after having been gone 40 years, which, you know, in the scheme of things, it's not comparing to 5,700 years gone or 10,000 years gone, but still it's pretty significant, and it is golden. So it seems like a good indicator of the golden timeline that this beautiful iguana has come back.
I love those shoulders. Makes it look tough.
Right? It looks like he needs a cigar hanging out the side of his mouth.
Yeah, I'll just add so for this one, there's like a 40-year stretch where they were considered to be extinct. And if we remember back a few minutes ago, that cactus finch also had about a 40-year stretch along similar timeline. Right. As this iguana. So could there be a relationship to this version of Earth that we're now experiencing right now, where both of these animals considered to be extinct for about 40 years have returned? So.
And someone in the chat mentioned that birds are sometimes messengers, and what might the message be for that finch? And I can't remember who said that, but someone, I don't catch everything in the chat, but I did see that. And I think that's relevant. You're right, Chris, the time frame is similar. So maybe the message is pay attention to that time range. I think a lot of people felt sad right in that time frame, like 1950 to 1990. That's when a lot of people are feeling like animals are dying. There's just been a lot of hand wringing about the loss of the degradation of species and so forth. But what if some of these beautiful animals and plants and birds are coming back?
Isn't that around the time that UFOs started coming back, Jerry?
It is. 47 was Roswell. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
July 8th, 1947 was Roswell. Well, 7th into the 8th. But, yeah.
I had a near-death experience in 1990. So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
That year is important for me.
Wow.
Well, I would like to point out one thing, though. There's certain narratives that we find around us about how bad the world is doing, the air we breathe, the environment in general. It's so bad. Yet we've got animals coming back. If it's so bad, they wouldn't be able to come back. I'm just saying. It's almost like some of the stuff they're telling us could be misleading.
Distractions.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Well,
remember your platform, sir.
We've got one more sponsor that I think is super exceptional too.
And one more sponsor coming up is, oh yes, so the Pygmy right whale, thought to be extinct until 2012, right? So, Chris, do you know a little bit about this, sir?
Yeah, so this was new for me, because in the past I didn't know about these. There's something called pygmy right whales. There are pygmy killer whales. There are dwarf blue whales, dwarf sperm whales. I think one of the dwarf ones only grows to be like 4 to 5 feet. They're actually smaller than a dolphin, but they're definitely whales. So I didn't know about any of this before, but this one really caught my attention because there was a really interesting, very rare encounter between paddleboarders in Australia that happened to come across one of these. So we've got a short video we can play about that. It's only about a minute long, but let's watch that and get an idea of what happened.
Of a time.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
Henry Caudle and Bailey Fraser were out paddleboarding with friends in Spalding Cove near Port Lincoln when a rare encounter took their breath away.
Oh, just there! Oh, just there!
The inquisitive pygmy right whale joining the group for a swim, breaching the water and even bumping into their board.
That was the f***ing sickest thing I've ever seen.
Pretty amazing how it was swimming around with us.
They couldn't believe their luck, enjoying a rare chance to get up close and personal with the wild animal.
Definitely inquisitive and looking at us, like, was interested in what we were. Like, very, very curious.
Yeah, very playful.
The once-in-a-lifetime encounter lasted more than 2 hours, the graceful whale putting on a memorable show before disappearing into the depths.
You almost hit us! I was recording that!
Pygmy right whales are incredibly rare. It's believed there are less than 200 in the wild. Until 2012, they were thought to be extinct.
Swimming with this was probably like the best thing I can, once in a lifetime kind of thing.
A fishing tale these mates won't forget anytime soon. Nathan Regter, 7 News.
So this thing not only pops back on the scene, but goes viral. That's
And
beautiful.
that year that it comes back, 2012, that's extremely relevant as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
What a year to make it come back.
And like when I tune into those two boys that experienced it, because the whale was with them for 2 hours, those two boys have a connection to whales. So I don't think it was any mistake that whale found those two boys to like play with them for the full 2 hours. So I wanted to mention that too. I thought that was a very important part of what happened here.
Absolutely.
And
What
when
an
did this?
amazing
What was the year on this video clip? When did this happen? Recent. Yeah.
Within a week or two. It's
Oh my gosh.
pretty recent. Yeah.
Nice.
Recent.
So it's
Oh,
summer.
that's crazy.
It's summer down there in the southern hemisphere right now. Yeah. It's winter up here in the
Right.
northern. Yeah.
Right. In
Okay.
Australia. Yes.
Nice.
And this is something else we're seeing a lot of, is these animals that are interacting more with humans that didn't used to really interact with humans like that, right?
Right.
We've seen this on a large scale. I've seen quite a few stories, and you see them on YouTube all the time, where you have animals coming up to people asking for help, or coming up to people for a variety of different reasons that they never did before. They used to always be very timid and scared of every human they would ever see, and it's like these animals have got a different personality to a degree, right?
I'm seeing that in my backyard. I've got a squirrel that's brought me apples, and a gopher that I just think of something I'd like done. And these pocket gophers are little farmers, and it's been bringing plants into my garden. They brought self-heal plants and great mullein plants, and so I'm personally seeing it in my life. Yeah,
That is
That's amazing.
incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The animal kingdom is getting more and more strange every day, and the Mandela is definitely the thing. A good way.
in a good way. Yes,
In a
thank you.
good way. Definitely in a, yeah. Except for the monkeys. You guys heard about the monkeys took over that town, right? A couple months ago.
No.
Yeah, a bunch of monkeys got mad and took over a whole town. So, yeah.
Sounds like, is it a town in the United States? Is it?
No, it was.
Sounds like
it was
politics
overseas.
today.
Sounds like Alfred Hitchcock. It's like Hitchcock's The Birds, but the monkeys. You know?
I could name about 3 towns, Chris. Anyway,
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, moving on, ladies and gentlemen. I do believe that is all the sponsors for today. 10 sponsors for today.
Yes. Yay.
Incredible sponsors at that. And speaking of incredible, I know we've all had some incredible goings on during the month that we've been apart, and I'm sure we've got a lot to share. So we're going to start out with Miss Cynthia Sue Larson. Chris, I'm going to let you go last for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Okay.
For the obvious reason? No.
All good. Okay. Yeah, my update is, well, basically, if you get my newsletter, I've just printed a black and white copy of it here. That's every month I publish that. And I had I'll just give you some highlights. There was a fun mention by Matt of Quantum of Conscience. One of my readers notified me, hey, Matt mentioned you. He mentioned the channel. He mentioned How Good Can It Get? And I thought, really? So I found where he talked about it. And it was kind of interesting because he was saying that he likes the How Good Can It Get phrase, but he personally has issues, not issues with it, but he likes the idea. He just feels like it's hard to maintain that kind of optimism. And he says, one thing he said was, we all harbor a lot of anger and baggage that needs to be dropped. One of the reasons for this reality is to drop the baggage. And he said, I'd like to be like Cynthia Sue Larson and say, how much better can it get today? And she expects it to be better. Although I haven't listened to her for a few years, great message, but it takes a long time to get there. So I just want to say, it's like meditation. It may take a long time to get there, but the more you ask that question, it just gets better. And don't worry about what your attitude might be. It could be, snarky, kind of sarcastic even. But as long as you're asking it with some shred of goodness, some little scrap of hopefulness, you'll start to see good results, and you can turn anything around.
Absolutely.
And then I think I mentioned last time.
Not, forcing a smile actually helps.
It does.
Believe it or not, it really does.
I've got the research, I've got the reference and sources for that in my book, Quantum Jumps, because I give examples on how to turn things around that are scientifically proven. That's one of them. You can just take, here's a pen. Make sure it's clean, put it in your mouth, and there you go. It's one of the proven things you can do. And it sounds stupid, one might look stupid, but it'll actually work. Proven to work. If you want to get smarter, you can point at your head. If you want to have more connections in your heart so that you can relate to people that are difficult to relate to, you can point your fingers to your heart. I mean, these extremely simple things are scientifically proven.
I'm going to be walking around for months like this then.
It's funny. My mom was a kindergarten teacher, and before her kindergarten kids took those standardized tests, she'd have them tap their heads like this. And that was brilliant because the kids would do better on the tests. And it's, again, scientifically proven. So very cool.
Nice.
Other highlights from my newsletter. I think I mentioned this last time, but surprisingly, myself and Lisa Vivian are finalists, top 10 finalists in the category of Best Modern Country Song. So we're at Nashville red carpet this year, and it's for our song, How Good Can It Get? We co-wrote that, and it was based on an experience that I had decades ago in Grace Cathedral walking a labyrinth, and just an amazing experience. But it was so much fun, and I'm just so pleased and honored that this song made the top 10. Other highlights, I was with Brian McFarlane and some other people, Digital Scribe, Life Matrix, Sandy Diva, and we had a great talk and a great conversation. That's on YouTube. People can check it out. Had a lot of other interviews. Other highlights in the newsletter, and people can go to realityshifters.com, check out this newsletter. This one is cool. I wanted to feature it. There's a songwriter named Harvey Mann, and he experienced a change in his song, which was Shine Your Love. And it was, I think Tiny Tim did a version of it. But what's strange is Harvey Mann noticed that the lyrics in the song he wrote are different. And I've experienced this in books I've written that I know that I wrote them and they have changed, or Advantage changed, Quantum Jumps changed. This song, the lyrics changed, and it's just a simple word. It's 2 instead of 4. And it's shocking when that happens to you. And I think it's great when another artist or author steps forward and says, this happened to something that I created. And then just a weird one from the Denver airport. This art here, someone pointed out that they remember they'd taken people to see this bizarre mural at the Denver airport. Now, the Denver airport's pretty weird to begin with, but there was a really weird mural with children that used to be wearing masks. This is pre-pandemic. They were wearing masks of the flags of the world. And it was so striking that this individual, Matthew, from Sammamish, Washington, and he would take people there just to show them, like, look at this, it's really bizarre. But now he wouldn't have been showing them how bizarre it was, because the mural no longer has children wearing those masks. And, and it doesn't make sense for them to be wearing masks. The whole thing was striking, memorable, and weird.
Wow.
So that's some cool stuff from this month's newsletter.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I think that's it. I mean, there's a lot more. There's always a lot in those newsletters, but that's my main news. So we can wrap it up there. That's realityshifters.com.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Realityshifters.com. Make sure you sign up for the newsletter. Like I said before, every time I see it come in my inbox, it puts a smile on my face for sure. I always look forward to seeing what kind of content is in there, and it's always incredible content to read. It's written in Cynthia's voice, so it's very upbeat, very optimistic, very happy. So how good can it get? There you go. Next up, we have Shane Robinson, unbiased and on the fence. How's your month been, Mr. Shane? How's it going, my friend?
Wonderful. I'm actually working on a video now that I will be posting in the next day or so, and it's kind of my update to my Navigating the Shift playlist that I've been doing, and just things I've been learning. I've had a lot of big pieces of my puzzle kind of come together, so I'm excited about sharing that. And of course, working with people one-on-one in Beyond Quantum Healing sessions, doing that so people can connect up with me if they want to do that at uotf.net. And that's about it. Nothing too exciting. I mean, we just started the new year. I'm trying to ease into it slowly.
That's navigating the shift, right?
Right. Exactly, bro.
So not a whole lot going on. Just working on your videos.
You got
channel,
it, man.
And where can they find that channel, Shane?
At Unbiased and On the Fence on YouTube.
And you've got a music channel too, right, Shane?
Yeah, exactly. And it's under my name. You can look that up under Shane Cornell Robinson or Shane Robinson. It's linked on
That's
my
on YouTube
channel.
Also?
Yep. On YouTube.
And there's something special about that music you're doing. I don't know if you want to mention it real quick, but just.
Well, I've kind of moved on from the 88 things, but so yeah, that was kind of cool. But yeah, I've moved on from that right now. But yeah, that stuff's available on both channels. I have a playlist that you can view on Unbiased and On the Fence that will take you to the other channels.
And do you have a website you keeping updated?
Yep, uotf.net.
uotf.net, and it will be dropped over here in the chat, I'm sure, momentarily.
It's in the comments too on this video. I made sure to put it in there. I think it's in there.
And It is also in the comment section below, as should be, I believe, all our links, correct?
Yeah. And you can actually click on the contacts tab when you get to the website, and that will take you to the information about the sessions. And then I've got pages for art and music and all of that.
So again, if you're watching on YouTube, it will be underneath in the video description on the official IMEC site. If somebody has put this on their site, it probably has not. But uotf.net over Unbiased and On the Fence. Shane Robinson, we appreciate you being along with us, Shane. It's always a pleasure, my friend, to spend time with you and the whole team. Myself, I've been doing okay. It's been kind of a hectic month. It has blown by. Am I the only one that feels like New Year's was just a couple days ago? Like, really? It's the 25th today. It doesn't feel like it's been 4 or 5 days into the month. It's blown by for me. I'm just totally mind-boggled. I can't keep up with the clock at this point. Me and the clock are in a race, and I'm losing. It's been really interesting.
Time is changing. Time is actually changing.
It really is.
Yeah.
I've got a whole diatribe I could go into about time, and we'd be here for the rest of the night. So I'm not going to get into that right now, but it's been very hectic. I had to step up into a temporary position at work, a lead position for a couple days while things were going on at work. So that was interesting. Had to change up my sleep schedule, the whole 9 yards. Definitely was a interesting time, but we got through it, got everything done. As far as the radio goes, we have returned to the airwaves, ladies and gentlemen, as of last week. We took a 1-month hiatus. We took the holiday season off, kind of kicked back and relaxed and enjoyed ourselves, did some fun things during the holidays, and now we're back in the groove, getting serious about it again. I had an interview last Thursday with a guy named Peter Berniger. I want to make sure I get that name right. Peter Berniger. He is an activist in Wisconsin. He's done a lot of wonderful research. You guys can find that at the ripinrabbithole.com. That is the link that is below this video also. That is RIPONRABBITHOLE.com. You're going to find the Dark Wolf's Den show over there. I am going to start going on Wednesday nights doing paranormal again. And Thursday nights will be freedom, liberties, discussions, things like that. So do stay tuned over there. Make sure you subscribe, hooked up over there, and we would love to see you guys. We also are on Rumble on the Rip and Rabbit Hole, and that's it right now. I believe we're working on expanding that. We've also got big stuff coming up on the Rip and Rabbit Hole. March 20th would be our Freedom Flame celebration coming up. So if you're into that, guys, mark your calendars for that too. That's what I got going on. Been a hectic, crazy fast, busy month. So we'll see how much quicker this year goes. We've got a lot going on, a lot of background stuff going on with IMEC. I know you guys in the chat, we've got some big things coming. It's all I'm allowed to say right now. I'm under a gag order by the team, but we got big things coming. I can say that much. But ladies and gentlemen, that's me, Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. Check us out, ripinrabbithole.com. I do not do YouTube content on my channels anymore. The only place you'll find me on YouTube is on IMEC. That's a long story, but I'm tired of them deciding what I can and cannot say on my channel, so we've gotten away from that platform. If you're wondering why my YouTube channel hasn't been updated in a while, don't look for it to be for much longer. And that said, Chris Anatra, you know him as the Quantum Businessman, has been doing some traveling this month, the way I understand it. How have things been going, Chris? What's going on with you, my friend?
Yeah, so I'll tell everyone about it, and maybe we'll bring up the next slide as the visual for what I'm going to be talking about. But basically, as a lot of people know, I always do something special for my birthday, which includes going someplace that I've never been before and doing something special. And I usually have my higher self be able to direct me where to go. This year, it was kind of in Cynthia's neck of the woods, in Mount Shasta, California. And Mount Shasta is actually considered a dormant volcano. It's about 14,000 feet high. I went there with my friend Sean and our new friend Tom, who we met in Orlando at the Galactic and Spiritual Informers Conference. Soul Family. We had another friend there as well. His name is Eric. So this trip was super, super magical. And there were actually timelines that were changing before our eyes. I know a lot of times that, when there's some kind of a weird thing that happens, it's more of like a personal thing when you have personal Mandela effects or personal timeline changes. But this was really interesting because all of us were experiencing the same thing at the same time. So as an example, when we got there, one of the first places we went to was this place called Fairy Falls. Fairy Falls is something that kind of the locals know about. It's kind of not easy to find. We were able to figure out where it was. And one of our experiences, this is our first timeline change experience, is we parked our car at this lower parking lot. And it's about a mile hike up the hill, up the mountain. And so we're going up the mountain. We find Fairy Falls, leave my blueberry muffins, talk to the fairies, had some cool experiences there. On the way back, we're leaving Fairy Falls, just at the very start of coming down the mountain, and there's this young couple with a dog. And we say hello to them, and they ask us where the falls are. And it was all snow, so we just said, follow the footprints, it'll take you there. So we go all the way back down the mountain again. We're going pretty fast because it's downhill. We get into our car, we go to drive away down the road, and as we're driving down the road, that same couple with the dog are there. And we were like, how could that have possibly happened? There's no other way to get down the mountain. There was literally no other way. It was like a drop-off cliff on one side and a high ridge on the other. Unless you had a helicopter, there's no way to do that. So we were like baffled. That was our first experience, because it was the same couple, same dog, everything was identical. So it just didn't make any sense, besides if it was a timeline change. Then on another one of the days, we went to actually hike up Mount Shasta. So there's a certain point where the roads are plowed, then they stop plowing the roads, and then you get off by foot and you start hiking up the road that's there. So we began our hike, and this group of people passed us. One was very unique looking. He was very tall, dark hair, kind of Mediterranean looking, and he had this really funky bear skin patchwork fur coat on that I've never seen anything like that before in my entire life. And he was with these 3 women and this other guy. So we say hello to them. So they were coming back down to where the cars were parked. So we're getting up to about 7,000 feet, and that's about as far as we could go. That same group of people was now coming down the hill. The tall guy with the dark hair, Mediterranean look, funky bearskin patchwork fur coat, the same 3 women and the other guy. And we said hello to them again, and we were kind of baffled. And about 25 feet away, we could hear them saying, "Didn't we just pass that group before?" So they were thinking the same thing. So again, like timelines changing, timelines merging, like literally before all of our eyes. And those experiences kept happening and happening and happening throughout the trip. There was another time on New Year's Eve, we tried to get to a restaurant out there, but a lot of them were all booked because it was New Year's Eve. We found this one Mexican restaurant. We were at the Mexican restaurant, and I was facing another table where there was this very elderly couple eating. And I looked down, I'm having my nachos, I look back up again, and it's a father and his son eating at that table, and they're almost done with their meal. I can see like their plates are almost cleaned up. So it's like, what's going on? So the entire trip was extremely magical, timelines changing, met some really cool people. Overall, it was just a really wonderful experience. And it got me thinking that in the future for these trips, whether it's on my birthday or whatever, we might want to invite more people to come along with us, because every time I go away and do these things, something happens. So if you guys are watching this and you'd like to have these kind of experiences and get DNA upgrades and all these types of things, we'll probably be planning something. We'll have like a small group of people that might want to do that. So I'm just going to add one more thing to it. So as we're leaving, we actually left out of the Sacramento airport. So we're at the Sacramento airport, and in this kind of remote section, there's not a lot of people around. This older man comes up and he sits at a table that's across from where Sean and I are sitting. And immediately in my mind, I got time cop. So I'm like, Sean, this guy at this table over here, he's a time cop. And Sean looks around and he's like, yeah, a time cop just jumped into his body. And what the way that works is that if you have affiliation with, if you understand the way time works, and that there are certain entities that are there to control time and make sure that it's not abused as it often is. When I was there, we had gone to this crystal store called the Crystal Matrix, which is off the beaten path, but the owner of it is, let's just say there's a lot of dragon energy going on in that store. He gave me this special man-made type of crystal. It's called a terahertz crystal. And by the way, I don't recommend just going online and buying a terahertz crystal, because a lot of them they may not have the best energy inside of them. But he had one that was related to time. And he had me do this procedure where I integrated into my field, so that every time there was some kind of something trying to change time on me that I wasn't approving of, I get red flagged for it. So I was all of a sudden having this, conversation, so to speak, with this time cop, explaining, because I must have alerted that in the field, like, what's going on with this. So I had my whole interaction with that. And this guy, for about 60 seconds, he just locked his gaze and stared at me. I don't even think he blinked for 60 seconds. And then finally he got up and left. So timelines changing, time distortions, time cops, DNA upgrades. Mount Shasta is amazing. So if you've never been to Mount Shasta, I know a lot of people have, but it's definitely a place you should put on your bucket list. I would recommend the summer though, not so much the winter, but overall a great experience. So I wanted to share that. as a highlight to what's happened to me, in the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Awesome, Chris. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, it was great.
Sounds like you had a wonderful time then. Some really
An adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's actually, if you can find it, there's a pyramid on Mount Shasta. And one of the things I wanted to do is when I tell the story in one of my Symphony Realities episodes about Napoleon, after the War of the Pyramids in Egypt, he spent his birthday in the pyramid, in the Great Pyramid of Giza. A lot of people don't know that. And then afterwards, he just changed course. He went right back to France. He left his armies behind, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. So I'm like, oh, I want to be like Napoleon and get the energy of the pyramid. And then they say that night of your birthday, you dream with your soul family, and you have like a soul family reunion in your dreams. So just everything it was a really good trip.
Well, I am so very glad to hear that, Chris. Sounds like you had a wonderful time, experienced some really, really. Did you see any UFOs?
We saw what appeared to be a UFO for sure. And you just made me think, one of the last things I wanted to comment on is about the concept of timeline splits and how our dreams can reveal that. Because I also had an experience where I know exactly when this happened in my life. I won't go too much into the story here. I think I've already taken up enough time, but basically what had happened was.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay. There was a timeline branch where I had branched off into ultimately what's this version of me, but there was another version of me that, my family was really good friends with another family that were professional singers. And I remember this is a while ago, this is in the late 1980s. The mother of the family there was a gathering, and she was asking everyone to sing. And she was trying to see if anybody had potential. And I remember when I started to sing, she was like, all right, no, Chris, you don't have potential. And she moved on. But in my dream, it actually didn't work out that way. I sang for her, and everyone was like really impressed. And so I believe that I know it's going to sound way out there, but possibly in another timeline, I was like more of a singer person, and maybe I didn't start this software company. And there was all these other factors. I won't get into too much more of that, but basically the dream that I had just locked it right in. And I remember that the daughter of the mother, who I kind of had a crush on back then, we were about the same age. This is like in the late 80s. In this dream, like we were married. So, and because the daughter really liked the fact that I could sing, and I was traveling around the world with them and doing different concerts and so forth. But in this timeline, as soon as she found out that I couldn't sing, she wasn't like interested in me anymore. So and that changed the whole timeline. So yeah, so dreams, us, and also like as our frequency keeps increasing, like I'm feeling that our dreams are going to be more and more important. So we should all definitely be very aware of what our dreams are and work on ways to remember them. And I'm actually in the future, I have this dream light language activation that I want to do that could help us all with our dreams. And I know I did the Soul Family one, and I tell you, the Soul Family homing beacon, I don't know about a lot of people, but I am meeting so many Soul Family that I would have never met before. So I don't know how well it's working for other people, but for myself, it's pretty amazing. So there you go.
I've definitely been running into quite a few, I believe, myself. Chris.
Yeah. And now's the time for this to be happening, for us to unite. Because when Soul Family unites, like we are strong. The system can't stop us.
And we're seeing it come together more and more naturally. We're seeing more and more people start to gravitate towards each other with the same ideas, same want to push forward into the future with better ways of doing things.
Exactly.
And speaking of doing things, we've got a lot of things left to do here on our slides. So, next slide, please. 9/11. So how do you guys remember the towers falling?
Yeah, so this is one that I spotted because I just came across this discussion group, and it was all about, the reasons why the second tower fell first. And I'm like, I started like reading it. The second tower didn't fall first. Like in my timeline, I remember both towers falling in the order that they were hit. remember one of the towers had the big antenna on it. I remember when that antenna came down, like to me, that was the first building that was hit, and that was the first building that fell. But now in this timeline, the north tower is hit at 8:45 a.m. And then about 18 minutes later, the south tower is hit at 9:03 a.m. But now the south tower collapses first, and then the north tower doesn't collapse until 10:30. So, and they say reasons why the angle of the plane was different and blah, blah, blah. But for me, no. And then then I started to do some more research, and I remember like there was all of this famous news footage of people like running away when the first tower collapsed. I can't find any of that footage that I so well remember and I've watched over and over again. Instead, there's other footage now of this news anchor named DJ Burkett or something like that. And it's all about his experience. Like a lot of it's about him running, the tower collapse and him and his cameraman running away. Completely new for me. Completely new. They go into this car garage and blah, blah, blah. Never saw that before. And then that would make sense because if the buildings fell out of order from what I remember, then there would have been people in different positions that would have been experiencing the collapse at different timelines. So the whole thing with 9/11, I call that like a hairball of timelines. There's a lot of different things trying to influence what was going on. One of those things that Evan Moneybags was talking about was this hurricane called Hurricane Erin. Now, I live actually out here, on the East Coast by Connecticut, and like 90 minutes away from where the Twin Towers are. I remember the morning like everyone else, but there was never any talk of I don't remember any talk of any hurricane. But if there was some entity or group trying to chess move the events of what happened, a great way to do that would be have a hurricane hit that day, because the weather would have been so bad. The planes may not have been able to, whatever you think would have happened. If there was a hurricane that day, it would have had a completely different outcome.
Right.
Just like when, the famous Napoleon, when he lost the Battle of Waterloo, the only reason he lost that was because the ground, everything was all muddy. And his whole thing was moving his artillery around. He was a master of cannons. And when the cannons were stuck in the mud, there's nothing that could be done. And then there was a volcanic eruption. I think it was Tambora, that caused all the heavy rains. So basically, the weather events can also change the outcome of a time event. So, yes, I don't know if anyone else remembers them falling out of order. And if you do, that's fine. That's that's the reality you experience. But for me, they fell in the order they were hit.
So I specifically remember a picture of the first collapse and mid-collapse with the antenna like this, like at a sharp angle. It was like on one of the newspapers or whatever. But you could see one tower was hit in the foreground. The other one was collapsing behind you. You couldn't even really make it out other than that antenna was kind of crooked. So you're saying the one with the big antenna is the last to fall in this reality?
Yeah, that's the North Tower. Yeah,
wow,
North Tower is with the antenna. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, because I remember it was so lopsided. It was, falling straight down, but the top of it had kind of toppled over quite a bit, and that was a frame that they had in the image. But there was another building still standing in the foreground, so that's bizarre.
Yeah, I remember that antenna too is important to me because at the time I was into wireless communications, and one of the things that antenna was doing was broadcasting HD TV channels from it. And even from Connecticut, if you had a special antenna, you could pick up the broadcast from that Twin Tower one. So, and I actually bought a special antenna to pick up the broadcast from the antenna on top of the World Trade Center. So that was also in my mind as well. So yeah.
A real strong memory node there. So you were seeing them as two distinct towers. So of course you would remember it even better, what order they fell in. That's great to see, to know,
And that Marriott hotel.
Yeah, that was brand new to me for sure.
There is now so much information I can find online about that Marriott hotel. So when we had our first convention in Ketchum, that was one of the slides that I talked about because this 9/11 was a big awakening event for me. So it was just overall just so interesting about, I could hardly find any information about that Marriott. Now there's a lot of information. There's a documentary out now, it came out a long time ago, about the people that were in the hotel before. Like just all these details about the hotel that I never saw before. So many more photographs of it and etc. So I feel like we are yet again in another timeline, and these timelines keep on being manipulated and changed like on a very regular basis.
Have you looked at symbolism and like a meaning for this, like such as when we see Lazarus species coming back? What about taking a higher dimensional point of view and asking, what kind of message can we see in this? And I don't know if there is one, but I'm just asking.
Yes. So one of the things I was trying to look at is, are there more survivors, for example?
Right.
Like with the Hindenburg, I always remember there were no survivors. Now there's 63 survivors. What's going on with that? So could there be a better outcome from this? It seems like the amount of people that died are about the same. I couldn't really tell, but it could be different people, because if, now people in the North Tower have more time to get out. So there could be all kinds of things going on that we don't necessarily have knowledge to. But this could represent a better timeline, because it could represent more people that survived from the North Tower, as an example.
Right.
So what do you guys over here in chat think? What do you remember? I've heard a couple say they remember the South then the North. Let's see here. Raider Champion says, heard they used tech to keep the hurricane at bay so the day could go on as planned. That's interesting.
I don't even remember a hurricane being mentioned, though.
Yeah, I don't remember being there at all.
Right.
Yeah, hurricane.
I remember South then North hit, but North then South collapse, says Raider.
Yep.
That's how it actually is, right? That's current history.
That's North hit first, South hit second, South falls first, North falls last,
right?
And what, like an hour plus last.
So he remembers it a little different. So a couple people in the chat remember things a little differently. 9/11 seems like one of those time-locked events anyway. One of those things that just has a major overcast in the years prior to and following it.
Mm-hmm. It's like a node or a timeline marker.
Yes.
Or something.
It's
very important. Even it showed up on that, that global consciousness, the random number generators. That's one of the really good examples of a spike and foreknowledge of it happening, because human consciousness was already responding, I think, as early as 2
midnight
in the morning.
The day before midnight is when the sensors started acting funny and going non-random, and lasted for over 24 hours.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing.
That dovetails with the research of Bernard Beitman. That I interviewed him, and he's written a book about meaningful coincidences. And what he's found in his research is that any kind of strong emotion could be positive, could be negative. That's going to tend to draw synchronized events together. Yeah. So I think this is significant, and I think that we see it in some of these, the PEAR, the Princeton, I forget what that stands for, but the anomalous research, where they're noticing the simultaneity of precognitive recognition of significant global events, usually within 24 hours before they happen. And it's quite orchestrated, but I think it's the emotional content that's getting picked up, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about those number generators, Shane. It's been a while since I've looked into that research.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's a very, very eye-opening if you haven't, for people who haven't looked into it at all. So, and I think that was Princeton, and was that Dr.
I think it was a heart math. I thought
was it heart math?
I think it was heart math.
Or was it the God helmet guy? Wasn't it?
Well, Princeton with their PEAR, their laboratory was they set up those random number generator sites, and then Institute of Noetic Sciences was a partner in that, and I think HeartMath was a partner. So there are lots of organizations that were joining together to do some of this research.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of the random number generators were located at universities all around the world and sort of compiled, so they sort of like sensors all over the world.
Right.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
And Chris, were you about to say something?
Are you trying to read my mind again, Jerry?
No. Well, it sounded like you started to say something, then I talked
Yeah, I was going to say that we should like keep our eye on these random number generators. It might give us a clue if something is going to happen, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree. I said that back years ago. If we could learn how to use those efficiently and could monitor them constantly, we could find more anomalous events, could even be able to determine possibly a shift schedule like Chick and I used to have before the shifts went all wonky again. We called them down to the day, dude. Chick and I had it figured out down to the day for about 3 months.
Is there,
all of a sudden it went wonky, just like my internet connection just did.
Is there something we could add to our website, like some kind of random number generator?
So
Actually,
cool.
I think there is a I think you can
They're
add
quite
to
a
this.
simple program to put on, actually.
Yeah. If we could find that, we could add that to the
Pretty
website.
sure it's something you can
What was his
embed or
name?
something.
We had that person at our conference last year. He built a whole website on those. Remember that?
Yeah, exactly.
I believe that's linked off of our site still.
Yeah, I can't remember.
You're frozen, Jerry?
No, I'm.
Oh, okay. You're
Chris
thinking.
was doing some research. I waited to give Chris a moment to see if he pulled something up there, but
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking for him right now.
All right.
A Kronos.
a Kronos,
Nago.
yes. Yes, he had that site. He did. That has the random number generators where you can play the games with them, the consciousness games and whatnot.
Yeah,
So.
Right.
Those are great.
Exactly.
Love it.
Yeah, me too.
All right, and let's get on with this game as we roll into our next slide. Willem or William Dafoe? How do you guys in chat and you team remember this being spelled? Was his name Willem, Willem, or William, classic spelling? Chris, you said you tuned in to this change.
Yeah, I'm gonna first say that we're probably all divided on this one, right?
So I remember Willem. Yes, it is a strange name, but that's why I remember it, is because it was so oddly spelled. Shane, what do you remember?
I don't know either way. I mean, I recognize
That's
the
an
guy, but I
honest
never
answer.
knew his name. Yeah.
Yeah, Spider-Man. He was the Green Goblin.
Yeah.
Cynthia, what do you remember?
I remember Willem. That was memorable because it's different. Having said that, I completely respect and am fascinated by people like Chris who remember it always used to be William, and then suddenly, poof, it changed. So I find that fascinating.
Yeah. So what had happened too is like I saw some kind of, I don't know, something came across my feed with Willem Dafoe. I'm like, who's that? Is that William's brother? So yeah, it was for me. It was always William Dafoe. So, but for you guys, especially because it's unique, you remember the Willem.
And let me go ahead and call out chat real quick before you get into that,
Sure.
Chris. Morgan Hannum says Willem. High Vibin says Willem. JoJo's Willem. DJ Rich Blackman, I remember Willem. Skook's Strange World William, standard spelling is what I remember. Sage, never noticed either way, honest answer. Jody Reiki for Life says Willem. Willem says Pam Lang. And Gainer says William. So we got a couple who remember William. Willem seems to be the majority remembrance, but there are a couple who remember William.
Yeah. So I was, for me, because it's different. And like we all know, it doesn't, it's fine. That's the way these Mandela effects work. In my office, I took a poll, and half the people remember William and half the people remember Willem. So, yeah. And
I almost feel like I would have noticed if it was Willem. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I think it, if I would have, I think it would have stood out to me like it does for Cynthia and Jerry if I had actually seen it.
Yeah, it's striking when that's what it is. It's because it's the only one. I don't know.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So this is a good exercise too for us to remember that, you know, not everyone will see things, you know, the same or remember things the same way we do. I remember talking to my father about the JFK assassination, and he always remembers 6 people in the car. He's like, 4 people in the car. That's ridiculous. I remember 3 people in the car even, and then 4 people in the car, and then 6 people in the car. But he always remembers 6. So it's just like we're coming, like depending on where our frequency is, we're coming from different place. Like what we remember is from different locations within time. So tuning into this Mandela effect, like so. Trying to figure out like what is it about the name Willem, and him changing his name to actually change his name when he first became an actor. So if you look it up, his birth name was William, but he changed it when he became an actor because he didn't want to be known with the same name as his father. He didn't want to be called like Billy Jr. or something like that. So he actually did change his name long time ago. But this name change, his higher self must have realized it would give him 3 times more fame. It gave him goodness upgrades. And when someone has these goodness upgrades, it affects the people that watch his films because they'll get more goodness from it. And one of the outcomes is because of this, he should be in more movies in this timeline. So I was looking up all the movies he was in. He's been in a lot of movies, like seriously for me, movies I've never heard of. I think one won an award in 2017. But there's a lot of movies that, you know, I'm not saying I'm a movie person, but somebody that's like more famous, sometimes you would at least heard of the movies before. And a lot of the work that, you know, I remember the Green Goblin, that, you know, the Spider-Man one, obviously, right. And some of the others that he's done.
Boondock Saints was really good.
That was a big one, right? Exactly. So, yeah. So, and, you know, the spellings of people, like different, like in Star Trek, Lieutenant Uhura, in this timeline, her name was always Nichelle Nichols. And I always remember being Michelle Nichols. And a lot of people are like, no, it was always Nichelle. Like, how could you think it was Michelle? And I'm like, Nichelle, who's that? So, or Mark Hamill from Luke Skywalker, his name is now spelled with 2 L's. I always remember just a single L. So all these things like affect, some people will be like, I always remember his name had 2 L's in it. So yeah, just throwing out some of those other things.
Yeah, there's a weird one like that. Judge Janine, I remember as Shapiro, but now it's Judge Janine Pirro. She's like on a lot of the news.
Yes, things. I'm with you, Shane. I'm with you on this.
I was like, what? Pirro?
Yes,
it was
100.
Shapiro. It's like, why? Where did the beginning of her last name come?
And I was told I was confusing it with Ben.
No.
What?
Well, while we're still looking at this slide, though, I want to go back to the name change. I think it's significant and interesting that it goes from Will I Am Dafoe to, for those who had noticed a change, then it goes to Will and then EM. I looked up what is EM, and it's a unit of measurement. And that's interesting, too. It's measurement for the width of printed matter, and it's basically equal to 12-point font. So 12 is interesting. The whole thing is fascinating. So it's going from will is kind of like, it's like our conscious agency, right? Like when we have intention and you focus on attention, then you're going somewhere. So when you go from will, I am, and then Dafoe, that there are different ways you can look at that one, but it might be going from feeling like the enemy or the antagonist to then will M, like a unit of measurement. So it's kind of like sizing up the foe. It's a big change, like going from I am
with
the
our
foe
will or intention.
to sizing up the foe. That is really interesting. So I think it just dovetails with what you were saying, Chris.
Yeah, and there's also the concept of our I am presence.
Exactly.
So could that show he had more authority over his I am presence by being able to change the name to one that had more goodness and would make him more popular, etc. So there's right,
because he was more than will, right? Like will is the ego, basically. Will I am. It's like it's almost like finding a deeper I am presence, which we all have. Yeah.
Very cool.
Cool.
This is a good one. Love it. Yeah, thanks.
This is a good one. The one that there's definitely a division over. There are those that remember it, 2 different ways.
But those of us who are noticing the change, like Chris and some of the other people in the chat, then you bring it for all of us. it becomes this amazing thing that we can all get to look at. Even if we didn't personally see the change, we can still learn from it and benefit from it.
Oh, Platoon, that was a good movie. JoJo's mentioned he was in Platoon too. That was a good movie.
Yeah.
All right, so William or Willem Dafoe, ladies and gentlemen, what do you remember? The Mandela may be a work again. Next up on our list is
The big one.
something that bothers me a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, the first time a pig heart is transplanted into a human happened in 2022? What?
Scratch my head on that one.
No, this happened, as is said in the bottom of the slide. I'm with this. The 1990s easily is when this first happened. Xenotransplantation. Guys, I am not going to be in good shape for the show tonight. The process of implanting an organ from one animal species to another took a leap forward in January 2022. Yes, I have issue with that year. When a 57-year-old man was with terminal heart disease received the first ever transplant of a genetically modified pig heart. So maybe the first genetically modified.
Yeah.
That's the only way I'm going to give any kind of give on this story. Because I remember the first pig heart being put into somebody way back in the 90s.
So is this an instance where they're like, they take a pig heart and they run CRISPR on it and turn it into the guy's DNA, something like that?
Well,
Probably. That's what it seems like to me.
well, you know what's interesting about pigs is that pigs are technically 98% human. So their DNA is already 98% human. So there's some other things I could talk about that. One of the things is there's a concept of this race of ET beings called the Anunnaki. And around 12,000 years ago, they crossed a wild boar with a human. They were like geneticists, so to speak, to create the pig, is the way the story goes in the Akashic records. And, you know, why would they do that? There's a whole reason why they would do that. And it has to do with eating pork. And it could be the reason why a lot of religions of the world forbid the use, the eating of pork, for example. But basically the concept is that a pig, but even without genetically modifying it, is really close to a human. So it would make sense that the pig's heart could be put into a human to keep it alive. And I remember like in the 90s, I remember this was on the news, like this was like, it was like, wow, they put a pig in someone, but they can never get the person to live more than a month or so. Like
Right.
That would be the maximum. This 57-year-old man, he actually lived for 2 or 3 months. And then, but even living, he was still on all this machinery and equipment, and he couldn't leave his hospital bed. And so the machinery was helping him still circulate the blood. But yeah, so to me, when I first saw this, I'm like, I kept doing research, like this must be wrong because I know it happened before, but everything pointed to this January of 2022 is the first time that it happened.
That is insane. That is no. In the chat apparently is with the majority of us that remember the 90s.
Yes.
I say majority. With those of us that remember the 90s.
I remember that. Yeah.
Bill Knight says the 80s.
Yeah.
Okay, perhaps.
Maybe.
Sage says earlier than 90s. Jody Reiki says 90s for sure. My Life DIY says no, they did that in the 90s and it failed after a short time.
Yeah.
JoJo says 90s, definitely. So there we go. We got quite a few from the chat that agree it was the 90s.
Certainly earlier than 2022.
Yeah, it was so long ago that I
Yeah, it's like a blip in the past. Like
so long ago for me. Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, why? I do wonder why. Like, I never heard anything after that too. Like, it's kind of
Right.
strange, you know? It's like, did they continue to do it or what? Because it's like you heard about it and then you didn't hear about it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, they pretty much stopped doing it because every time they did it, it failed. It would fail time after time.
And now they're trying it for the first time last year. Is that what's
With maybe CRISPR or something?
Yeah, with 22, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, nothing actually talked about anything that was done in the 80s or 90s. It was all, this is like the first time it was done, and it wasn't necessarily referencing genetically modified. They never explained what genetically modified was, but obviously they're trying to bring it more to 100% instead of the 98%, more of 100% compatibility with the human, which still didn't work, even with all the great technology that science has right now.
What could possibly go wrong? Sounds like a horror movie.
Yeah.
Wow, this one's wild.
How good can it get? Is that what you meant to say?
I'd rather say that. I'm not really into the horror movie genre, as you might well imagine. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you were, that still fits, though, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. You look around and
yeah, this is very strange. So, Chris, you're saying that the 57-year-old did not live that long in 2022?
Yeah, I believe they announced his death a few months later.
Phooey.
And I think that the article also said the doctors are hopeful they're going to continue with their experiments.
Their experiments.
Yeah, I know, right? And keep putting pig hearts into people. But I have a strange feeling it's not going to work out. Even having a human heart transplant is very, very tricky.
It is
because you take the frequency of the heart of one person and put it into another person. Unless there's a match like this, it's just like doesn't seem like it's going to work.
And it seems like people sometimes get the memories, they get the feelings of however that person was living. That's been interesting too. You know that there's been
a lot of conscious experience crossovers in things like that. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And the heart is where like one of the things I talk about, the heart is where our higher self can come into us.
Right.
So if you remove your heart and put the heart of a beast or a heart of an animal into you, your higher self can't find you anymore. Like it's lost its connection to you. It's like a Bluetooth speaker. You go too far away from the source and you don't get a connection anymore. So you lose that. The heart is one of the most important things that we have.
Doesn't it also produce the highest energetic field in the body?
Yeah, exactly.
It does. And it's got the neurons too. It's like another kind of brain. We have a brain in the brain. We've got one in the heart. We've got one in the gut.
Yes.
And that's why when there are these transplants, sometimes the person who receives the recipient of the transplant, if they get the heart from someone, for example, who meditated for decades, they get the benefit of all of those years of meditation.
And a sudden want to meditate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so and those neurons are super important because one of the things the neurons in the heart do is like control the autonomic responses in our body. It knows how to keep the heart beating and so forth. Right. So if you've got neurons from a different creature inside of you, it's just not like your body is not going to be able to understand how that works. So there's just sometimes scientists will look at things mechanically, like totally left brain. They're literally only thinking from their neck up, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah. So when you have that kind of a concept, well, this engine should work in this engine because put this lawnmower engine in this Ferrari and it should work technically, but it doesn't.
If we were robots, maybe so, but we're not.
But there's even brain cells in the heart as well.
There are. Yes, exactly. There are. Yes. And the gut too. We've got the entire nervous system is part of the brain mechanism. It's all connected. But it's much more than a mechanism.
Maybe there is something to the old saying, a way to a man's heart is through his stomach.
Funny.
And this man's heart got replaced by a pig heart for the first time in this timeline. In 2022, even though lots of us remember it being much earlier. This one here, there's a lot of them that I'll be the first to tell you, yeah, not really so sure on. I'm 100 on this one, 110 on this one. I know I remember this being a thing, as Chris said, a failure of a thing, which is why it becomes so memorable way back when. It was big news that they had tried it and failed horribly. Mm-hmm. It's like saying Dolly didn't exist. It was big news when it happened. If they just did Dolly like this year, no, they did Dolly back in the 90s. We remember when this was a thing, Yes. So it'd be the same thing like that for me anyway.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I agree.
So there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. The timeline hairball is definitely getting remixed by the day, it seems, by the minute, maybe by the second, right? What do you think, Chris? Well, how often is the timeline hairball remixing?
Oh, it's like constant.
Constant.
Yeah, I think that, yeah. And for all of us, it might be happening at like different speeds, but for the most part, it's happening on a very frequent basis. And the more we raise our frequency, the more we're going to observe all these things. The more the timelines keep changing. So keep raising your frequency.
Yes.
Absolutely. How good can it get to the next slide? Now, this is how good it can get, ladies and gentlemen. This, a unicorn. You heard me right. Yep, you heard me right. I said a unicorn, real deal. Siberian Unicorn Rhino coexisted with humans. Not only were unicorns real, they coexisted with humans, ladies and gentlemen. Those stories in the Bible might not have been so off kilter after all. Check this out. New research by Australian scientists shows that unicorns lived alongside humans. I'm going to read that sentence again. It just sounds so cool. New research by Australian scientists shows that unicorns lived alongside humans. The giant, shaggy Ice Age rhinoceros, Elasmotherium sibiricum. Yeah, I probably slaughtered that.
You nailed it.
That was good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Known as Siberian unicorn because of its extraordinary large. Okay, that is what the word is there. Extraordinarily large single horn. Researchers say the Siberian unicorn became extinct only 36,000 years ago, which means it's due to come back on the timeline any time now, right?
You never know. It could. I mean, the way things are going, I wouldn't be too surprised. I mean, it's pretty big, though. Look how big this thing is. I mean, it's gigantic.
It's gargantuan.
And just to be clear, it's not like the unicorn we think of, like with the horse and rainbows and all that, but it's basically a giant rhinoceros that has a big one single horn. And
right in the middle where a unicorn would have one.
Yeah, exactly. And
it doesn't quite look like a rhino, though, does it? I mean,
looks like a sloth. As somebody pointed out in the chat, it looks like a sloth.
It does look like a sloth.
Looks like something from Star Wars.
Right. But it does.
Yeah, so thank you, Siren.
Okay, real quick, ladies and gentlemen, Siren Offspring checking in with $5. Thank you so much, Siren. We sincerely appreciate that. It says Billy Ray Cyrus, Achy Breaky Heart. I always thought he wrote it himself. I remember an interview how he got the inspiration. Always thought he did.
Interesting. That's a good one.
Did he now not write that himself? Is that...
Seems to be the indication.
Real-time research, ladies and gentlemen. Who wrote Achy Breaky Heart? It was written, or it was sung. Yeah, this is not going to be a good night on the radio. Sung by Billy Ray Cyrus. Let's see what the wiki has on it. I don't want to know who sang it. I want to know who wrote it. Written by Don Von Tress. So in this timeline, he did not write Achy Breaky Heart. Somebody else did. Very fascinating, interesting. Thank you, Siren Offspring, for the $5 super chat and the bit of information. If you guys would like to super chat us, remember we are a 501c3 charitable organization. That means your donations are tax deductible. So feel free to donate to us. It is by your donations that we run. That you guys are the only way that we have any money coming in. Whether it be through our Patreon from you guys or through donations here. So we sincerely appreciate it, as it takes quite a bit to put on the in-person conferences. And as we're working towards trying to get more of those, we are definitely going to need as much help as you guys can provide. So if you want to donate, definitely feel free to hit that super chat button. Go on over to the Patreon, or do we have things set up on our site, Chris, or is that not yet?
Probably not yet.
I think they can donate through PayPal, right? And then, so we've got two options. You can be the Patreon, or you can just send a one-time donation.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Or super chat too.
And you can
We
do-
appreciate those too.
We definitely do.
I just wanted
And
to say,
again, it's all tax deductible, folks. Chris, go ahead.
I just wanted to say something. I'm sure Siren Offspring already knows this, but sirens, type of mermaid, known to live in the South Pacific around Starbuck Island. So a lot of times when you go to Starbucks, you see the lady on the logo. That's actually a siren, and it's named after Starbuck Island. So a little bit of like trivia going on there.
I was wondering what the mermaid had anything to do with the name. It just totally made no sense to me at all.
Yeah, just look up Starbuck Island, and it's an island in the South Pacific. Yeah.
Nice.
Interesting. Do they grow coffee beans?
I don't think so.
See, that would have been fitting, right?
But getting back to that rhino, so
Yeah.
one of the things like tuning into is the horn, right?
Right.
So the horns of certain animals have different properties, and tuning into the horn of this particular rhinoceros that lived at least 36,000 years ago, the horn contains a map of the multiverse. I'm allowed to say that. So yeah, it's a very special being, and its horn actually has charts and maps and everything related to the entire multiverse. So I want to bring that out as something to possibly consider as to the importance of its horn.
I like the way the people in the picture are touching that horn too. It seems like they're drawing attention to it, and not just one person touching it, but two of them.
The one guy looks like he's studying the map on it.
Yeah. And the other significant thing here is that it seems like maybe we're getting closer and closer with like this Siberian unicorn maybe coming back because it's coexisting with humans. That seems new. Like, I don't know. I mean, first of all, I've never heard of this thing, but secondly, that it's coexisting with humans seems extraordinary. It seems like it's coming closer and closer, for sure.
I got a question. What do you get if you cross an elephant and a rhinoceros? Elephino. Anyway.
Oh, no.
Oh, well, that's a dad joke.
Oh, no.
Anyway, that's about the edge of where we're going to go with that. It is a family-friendly show. All right. But definitely a fascinating creature, a weird-looking creature. If I ever would think a unicorn in this world, you know, it would not be the Disney version. It would more likely look something to this degree in this world, opposed to, again, the Disney version of a unicorn, a horse with a horn, you know.
Yes.
This would be more something that I would expect nature to put out there as such a creature. So, there is that. And with that, let's keep on rolling. A very special thank you, as we were just mentioning our Patreons. We have a few of you guys who are subscribed to our Patreon. We sincerely appreciate it. Starting with the ones that have been here for over a year. You guys are rock stars. We really, really appreciate you guys. And those would be Jason Ram, Jody, Colleen Learley, James, JD Peterson, and Josiah Boricius. I hope I said your name right. So that is our tier of the oldest members so far, the over a year members. Then our silver tier, our over 6 month members is Paul Ellis, Michelle Walker, Bo Kim, Allison Eastman, and Gail Brown. And last but not least, the newcomers in the bronze level over here with Louisa Diaz, welcome, as well as Rhea, Teresa Richards, and Belinda Anders. Glad to have all of you guys along for this incredible ride here. You Patreon members know you get exclusive special content coming up. We have a green screen or green room video we have coming up from today's episode. So do make sure you are a Patreon subscriber, because that's the only way you're going to find that content, where we have discussions that we're not able to have on YouTube and other platforms that, don't like all the words that are being said. So do check us out once again. Become a Patreon member. It definitely helps support us at IMEC. Helps support our cause of putting on conferences for you guys, and just helps all around. We don't make a penny off of it. I don't profit whatsoever. Neither does Cynthia, Chris, or Shane. The only people that profit is you guys in the community, as we do these conferences for you guys, as well as trying to do the in-person conference for you guys, which does take a little bit of funds. Unfortunately, they don't like to donate a lot of stuff to people in this world. So any help you can give us would be appreciated. Become a Patreon member. You guys are sincerely appreciated over there on Patreon, as well as everybody that follows us, of course, in IMEC. We really appreciate all you guys. So thank you so much to all you guys. Next slide, please. Upcoming shows, ladies and gentlemen. We have our show coming up February 22nd. That is on a Wednesday, 2023. Mark your calendars, 2/22/23. Didn't we do the 2/22 last year also?
On a Tuesday.
Yes.
On a Tuesday. That's right. It was on a Tuesday. 2/22 was on a Tuesday. How fitting can that be? But February 22nd this year, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back with another episode of IMEC Season 3 Open Tables, Episode 2. And Episode 3 will come up in March, on Wednesday, March 29th, 2023, cutting it close to the edge of that month there, folks. But do check out your calendars. Make sure you are available to join us on those days, as we will be broadcasting for you guys. So do mark your calendars. Coming up, Season 3. Folks, we've got a whole lot of fun coming up in Season 3. That I can guarantee. I made a rhyme finally. Moving on to the next slide. Time for questions. Do you have any questions, team? Oh, wait, I asked the wrong people, didn't I? Think it's the chat, isn't it?
Well, I just wanted to mention that if anyone watches the Patreon, the green room thing we just made, just as telling everyone what we actually spoke about. We spoke about the situation with the egg shortage and what could be causing that, and also the situation with a little bit about the Buffalo Bills player Damar Hamlin and what could be going on, with that as well. Things that we can't really say publicly on YouTube, but we could talk about it more for our Patreons. So just as a preview of some of the things we spoke about.
I appreciate that, Chris, because I sure couldn't remember what we said back there on cam and off cam, and I've done said so much today, I don't even remember what part was what. So thank you so much, my friend. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Oh, and then just a little hint about something possibly coming up later. So some special insider information.
Only that's something else you'll get as a Patreon insider,
first
time information. You'll be the ones to hear it before anybody else does.
When do we want to announce that, guys?
I think next month.
Next month, okay. Possibly, if we have everything set in
working
stone.
On getting,
Okay.
We've got to have a meeting, I do believe, a team meeting. We can pound out some details.
Okay.
We'll see what our patrons respond like too.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. Definitely some big stuff coming, folks. And announcements coming that I wish we could right now, folks. Like I said, I'm even under a gag order from the team where I'd blurt it out already. So we'll get there. But stay tuned. Huge information coming in 23, ladies and gentlemen. Next month, we will be updating. We may give all the information next month. We'll have to see. Time for questions. There's one question that I've seen so far, only one question. And this comes from Morgan Hanam. And it is a very interesting question. They say, off topic, but what does the panel think of AI-generated images? So I think this is something we need to be careful of personally, because it goes along with the deep fake idea. Could somebody AI generate Mandela things the way we remember them and try to pass them off as new? You know what I mean? Or try to pass them off as old evidence that they found, something like that. So something we need to be careful of. On the same note, could you use that thing to create the things that we remember, to create the Mandela effects back to the way our memory fits them. So I think it could go a variety of ways. It could be a useful tool or a dangerous one, depending how people tend to use it. That's my opinion. What do you guys think?
I think it's similar to ChatGPT. So it's which is where artificial intelligence is able to generate basically text, like writing paragraphs that can stand in for copy that you might have previously gotten from a journalist or an author. But in the field of art, we've got artificial intelligence generated imagery working off a couple of prompts. And both, whether it's ChatGPT or artificial intelligence artwork, they're both capable of seemingly bringing creativity. This is what really is interesting, because how creative is it really? It seems new, it seems beautiful, either one of them. So it instantly provokes sparks some controversy perhaps about how do people feel ethically about this, and where does it fit, and what happens to human authors, journalists, and artists when they can seemingly be replaced perhaps by just giving a couple of prompts, and then the student who's taking a class in whatever subject can just say, okay, ChatGPT, write me an essay about whatever. And then you get the result. And same thing with the art. What is happening here? So I think it's throwing a question in our face of how do humans wish to proceed forward? And we haven't really given it a lot of thought, either about the ethics of it, how we feel about it, where it fits, what does it mean? I'm not answering the question. I'm just saying there are a lot of questions here.
Yeah, can I say something about the ChatGPT? Somebody brought this to my attention, and I just typed this in. Did Ed McMahon work for Publishers Clearinghouse? So if you go to the ChatGPT and type that in, you know what it says?
What does it say?
Yes. Ed McMahon was the spokesperson for Publishers Clearinghouse for many years. He was best known for announcing the company's prize-winning sweepstakes on television and in commercials. So does that know something we don't know?
So they're using quantum computers, so it's checking all the timelines.
Looking at all the timelines, right? The majority of the timeline.
I mean, jokingly as you say that, you may be onto something for real.
Well, I am sort of, I think with the art, and it's probably this way with the articles too. So if you can find residue, you're probably going to find AI remembering the old stuff, because essentially what my interaction with these art programs, the AI art programs, is that it's just a real clever plagiarist. So it's really like without the human art, it wouldn't even be able to create anything. It's like able to go, and I've seen weird signatures where it combined all of the people that plagiarized down in the corner into some unintelligent hieroglyphic looking signature, right?
Right.
But it's just looking around, it's taking the words and it's compiling stuff together in a way that is interesting, but it's like clever plagiarism, because it's done in a way that you can't even tell where it stole the images or ideas from, but it's not creative in any way. But
this is a very good question, though, because it's dancing on that edge, that knife's edge, the razor's edge of plagiarism. Is it plagiarism? Or, they say creativity is building on the shoulders of giants, that whether it's science, whether it's arts of some sort, literature, that we're constantly growing forward from what has been developed in the past.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
like
Everything's
to
plagiarism at that level, then,
because
we're
chat
inspiring.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Jerry.
So Sage is saying, wow, no one remembers that. Yes, we all remember Ed McMahon delivering the checks. We all remember him being the spokesperson for Publishers Clearinghouse. The problem is reality
does
not remember him doing any of that. Reality says none of that existed at all. That's the Mandela here. So it seems you were a little confused there. I just wanted to clear that up for those that may be new to that particular Mandela Effect or maybe hadn't heard of it, because it seemed to be causing a little confusion in the chat. I do apologize. Go ahead, guys.
So he did work for a company. It was American, what was it?
American Family Publishers with Dick Clark.
Okay, and he never handed out any big checks. So if you remember him handing out a big check, or there's still shows that make fun of, and kind of like, it's just weird, because
Publishers Clearinghouse, they actually had two agents watch my Twitter after I started talking about it. PCH Agent 1 and Agent 2. I joke not. Seriously. But PCH Publisher Clearinghouse cannot figure out for the life of them why people keep associating Ed with their brand.
It's like Stouffer's stovetop stuffing. This is we associate it because we remember it,
right?
Because we saw it. But now, supposedly, that never existed. You could probably ask ChatGPT about Stouffer's stovetop stuffing or who makes stovetop stuffing and see what it gives you on that one.
That would be fun to play with in reference to Mandela's now. You got me interested.
Yeah.
And it's funny because right after this, I have a meeting with somebody to play with ChatGPT to go over and discuss the use of ChatGPT.
You can play with it for Mandela Effects, apparently, which I had not done. So people are seeing this live on our show. I don't think it's been done before, and we're breaking ground here.
Yeah, I got a call earlier today, and somebody asked me about that. I said, well, I've got a show I'm getting ready to do. They said, well, hit me up after the show. Well, I want to show you something. So literally, that's what I'm about to go do right after this show.
Nice.
So I asked the question to ChatGPT about stovetop stuffing, and it says stovetop stuffing is a brand of stuffing mix that is made by Kraft Heinz.
Okay.
The first stovetop stuffing was introduced in 1972.
By Stouffer's. No.
Right.
I mean, can you take like a sort of trick it? It's AI, right? So like recipes that use Stouffer's stovetop.
Where's it getting its data? Where's it getting its data from?
Because it's going to be getting it from people, us.
What is the name of the family of animated bears that teach morals?
Oh, you want me to type that in, actually?
I mean, if you'd like to. Yeah.
Okay, so there's also the chatting with an AI friend thing. Do you guys know about that?
No.
So I knew somebody a couple people actually, who downloaded that, and it got psychotic, like really psychotic, and tried to like date the person and got jealous, and of course they can't experience these emotions, but that's what it was, the road it was heading down. Like it was really disturbing, some of the things this thing did.
Yeah,
It's
mimicry of emotions and
mimicry,
feelings.
mimic or something like that. Yeah.
Wow. No, I haven't heard about that.
It says Berenstein Bears.
It says stain.
It says stain. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So I don't know how much I trust this thing, but it get interesting.
Then who are the Berenstein Bears? Let's check it out. See if it gives us the same answer in reverse. If it just puts them together.
You are.
Who are the Berenstein Bears? What is this ChatGPT? So this is an AI chat interactive program. They can like write essays and draw pictures, or what all can it do? I don't know.
Sure. Well, they're trying to see if it can pass the bar exam. Apparently, it did not yet pass the bar exam. They're trying to see if it can pass the medical exam. Not yet. However, it is able to do enough that it can start, writing essays, for example, that would receive a passing grade from maybe high school teachers, maybe college. I don't know. So it's putting together information in a response. You ask it, you give it a prompt, it writes the answer. So it can write for web designers and for newspapers and so forth. It's part of the automation of our information age. And it's
so is this leading to robot attorneys and doctors?
They're hoping to be able to authorize robot AI doctors. That's definitely something in the works. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Kind of like,
I'm sure I don't feel good about that. No questions at all.
I'm sure you'll find people, I don't know, willing to let it try it out. I don't know,
Okay.
Not me, not it.
Okay, Chris has something.
Yeah, so when I asked ChatGPT, who are the Berenstein Bears, it says, I apologize for the confusion. The previous response was incorrect. The name of the family of bears that teach morals to children in books is not the Berenstain Bears, but the Berenstein Bears.
What?
What?
Hey, self-learning.
Oh
you just run somebody's essay.
Oh,
buddy.
Chris!
You
Oh
shouldn't
my
let it know.
gosh!
That's really interesting.
That is super trippy.
Yeah, if anyone wants to play with this,
oh my gosh!
the website is openai.com. And I think they just introduced a version. I think they're charging $36 a month.
Yeah, I got
like,
the download.
full access to it. Otherwise, you can just type in these basic questions and get responses. So
OpenAI.com, correct?
It's listening to us right now. Of course it is.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It apologized for the confusion. Isn't that interesting?
It apologized for a previous answer. So it's self-learning. That's pretty. I the one I played with, I could totally tell it was self-learning and trying to see.
I love it.
You know. And when you look at AI, I classify them into 3 classifications. There's positive, there's negative, and there's neutral. I mean, positive, negative, and neutral. Negative is like Terminator stuff, and positive is really there to help humanity, and neutral's neutral. And I'm getting that this one is like in the neutral category. I don't feel any malintent or any extra positive intent, but it's like right in that neutral zone.
It really comes down to the programmer more than the actual program, you know.
I got a question for Chris from Tyrell Core 1967. Says, Chris Anatra, what do you think of the recent giant humanoid sightings? Or do you think the recent giant humanoid sightings are real?
I'm not aware of any recent giant humanoids. Is this like military stuff where like military people will like, there's a picture and they're like fighting a giant? I mean,
I think more recently they've had a slew of these pictures where you can see these giant humanoid looking figures on the top of a mountain that look way bigger than a regular human could be. And so maybe probably that's been more trending, I think, recently.
Okay. I'd have to look at a picture and kind of tune into it.
Some of them you can see them moving though, so it ain't like you know, it's a tree that looks like a man or something.
Like the walking trees, but I definitely like believe there were giants. Like without a doubt, there were giants. Like without a doubt, there were giants in North America even. So I definitely believe in the whole giant concept. There's enough skeletal remains of giants, and even people nowadays that are like literally giants. You know, I just saw somebody who's like 9 or 10 feet tall. It's so giants are real for sure. But I want to look at the photo and kind of tune into it and see what my higher self tells me.
Starbucks has a Mandela. Does Starbucks have a Mandela?
Yeah. Well, the logo actually. A lot of people remember it being Starbucks coffee, and now it's just Starbucks. So I remember that being like a Mandela effect, like I heard about a while ago. And I do kind of remember the Starbucks and then the coffee below it, and now it's just Starbucks. But I don't know if they meant Starbucks Island, but I'm not really sure how to answer that question.
Her tail. Something about her tail.
Oh, I'd have to look at I'd have to like see if I could bring up the image.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm totally just going off what I'm being told here. If it is showing in the logo or not.
Yeah,
I remember being in the logo.
Yeah, currently the tail is like a split tail. It's like on either side of her.
Okay. So it is in the logo.
And apparently the coffee's at the bottom again, unless we had it backwards. Starbucks and coffee.
Wait, what?
What are you finding?
Okay.
A big sign that says Starbucks and coffee underneath.
Yeah, okay, that's really interesting.
We could have totally flip-flopped. So
this could be a Chick-fil-A type thing where
exactly. Which I think there's like 3 versions of that place. I don't ever eat there, so it really stands out to me. You know?
Yeah, and the tail does look different. It almost looks like her arms.
Yeah, that is strange. I don't know what it is about the tail. I know I could always see the tail, but I can still see it.
Just hold it up there.
Yeah, and the star at the top.
Okay, so that is different. I remember the tail just like coming up behind her, not coming up around the sides of her.
This is different. I remember it on one side or the other.
I definitely remember the split tail because I was like, that's kind of weird that she's got a split tail like that.
Yeah, this is different. But maybe they changed the logo.
Do you remember the star on her crown?
On
her head? Well, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I could be sure.
Not sure.
Not sure.
Not 100.
Now this logo may have evolved too. I don't know if it's gone through.
Yeah, because that the same thing happened like with the Verizon logo. There's like a check mark in the logo. in my old timeline, that check mark was always above the eye. So, and then like somebody said, well, research it. Verizon actually changed where the check mark was before. So I'm actually going to call it up right now. But the check mark was never above the eye. It was like below the word Verizon.
Interesting.
Yeah. And now the check mark is to the right of the N in Verizon. And I'm like, no, that's not, I never, this switched for me about 2 or 3 years ago. It was always above the I. Now it's next to the N. But when you go back and look at the history of logos, it was never above the I. It was always below the whole word Verizon. So it's all wonky for me, these logos, you know.
And we did get a comment last month about K-Mart, that was one of the biggest Mandela effects for somebody, the dash in K-Mart, you know, that's changed. So do a shout out for that one.
Let me look at that one.
Yeah, I ain't seen that one either. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's no dash in it anymore.
What?
Right. See, someone commented last month. That's our mailbag. So shout out. Thank you for the mailbag.
Yeah, that's new for me.
Yeah.
Definitely new.
Okay.
All right. So
I think I noticed it had the chopped off T. One side.
Yeah, you noticed the T. I remember that. But I've never noticed the dash missing before. That is huge.
Strange indeed.
All right. Thank you for everybody who sends out mailbag. If you would like to send us stuff in the mailbag, you can reach us at team, that is TEAM, at imec.world. Team at imec.world. Also check out our website, imec.world, imec.world. That is a real website, believe it or not. That is a real website. Check it out. We would love for you to go over there. Go ahead, Cynthia.
You can also leave comments right here on the YouTube, and we can respond to that and communicate about that too, because that's where someone left the K-Mart in last month's live stream.
Didn't you say there were some comments about Lyle's golden syrup?
There were, yes, some amazement and appreciation that they also don't remember the situation with the lion surrounded by basically, what are those, dead bees? Or no, it's a dead lion surrounded by bees.
by honeybees, yeah.
But the whole thing is so weird. People just, I'm laughing because it's like, what?
It's 3:33 right now, folks.
Yay.
3:33 right now. The chat's pointing out.
This is our crowd, right? We all notice.
Right. And I do believe, speaking of time, that it is time to wrap this up and roll on out of here for this month. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been so much fun hanging out with you guys. It's always a pleasure. You guys in chat, of course, my friends here in the team. It's always an excellent pleasure hanging out with all of you guys. So I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. This is Cynthia Sue Larson and Christopher Anatra. You know him as the Quantum Businessman. Shane Robinson, unbiased and on the fence. Together we are IMEC, the International, let's try that again, International Mandela Effect Conference. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, together we go.
Together we grow.
Lots of love, everybody.
Yeah, love you lots.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.